This episode of Now This Is Lit is brought to you by Audible. Check the link in the description to get your first Star Wars audiobook free. Everyone loves free things. Click that link. Do it. This show is also brought to you by our patrons. If you want to support the show in a different way, with just $1 a month, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. You can get a sticker. You can get access to an exclusive show that we do every month that's wild and chaotic and fun and something you can only get by becoming a member of the Patreon. There'll be so many more perks very, very soon. But for now, do you want a sticker? Do you want a sticker that has a Now This Is Lit logo? Because it's fantastic and I love them. But I also want to give them away because there's just a stack of stickers on my desk. So if you want one, $1 a month. Patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Now This Is Lit, a podcast about Star Wars books, the people who make them, and the readers who just can't get enough of them. I'm your host, Meg Dowell. I use she, her pronouns. And as I've said already on multiple episodes this year, it's a new year. It's 2025. But that also means that it's time to celebrate another round of Star Wars books that came out 10 years ago, in 2015 in this case. A lot of really good novels came out in 2015. It was a very important time for Star Wars books, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. You've got the entire journey to The Force Awakens, and then you have The Force Awakens at the end of the year. 2015, quite a year for Star Wars publishing, and we'll talk about that because it's been 10 years. So I guess let's talk about that more in depth. 18 total novels came out, Star Wars novels, in 2015. This is including adult novels, young adult novels, middle grade, young reader books, whatever you want to classify them as, it's up to you. We're not going to talk about reference books because that gets into a whole other thing that we're not going to talk about on this particular episode. I don't mean to leave them out. We need to talk about them more, but we're just not doing that today. So let's talk about everything that is turning 10 this year, and we'll go through what they are, when that anniversary is. Keep in mind if there's any authors associated with these books that you want me to talk to, if that's possible, let me know, and I'll fast track that request, and we'll see what we can do. Servants of the Empire, Rebel in the Ranks is our first book that came out in 2015, our first Star Wars book that is turning 10 this year. That anniversary is March 3rd. Very excited about that. Have been meaning to talk to Jason Fry about this series as a whole because it is one of my favorite book series that Star Wars has ever done. It's too short and it is delightful. And yes, it's associated with Rebels, and that may be part of the reason I love it so much, but also it's just a very good series apart from that. If you know, you know, and if you don't, I encourage you to check it out. Middle grade books, not everyone's thing. I think you should still try it anyway, especially if you are a Rebels fan. Also on March 3rd, Heir to the Jedi came out. We've talked about this book before in the show, and by we I mean I, and that was the first installment of my On Second Thought series where I reread Heir to the Jedi and talked about how I no longer hated it. Will we talk about this book again? I would love to do an actual discussion on it. I really want to prioritize celebrating these anniversaries because 10 years is a big deal. That's, a book birthday is a book birthday, and we celebrate that always. But 10 years, all of these books are still relevant, and that's why I think it's so cool, and that's why I'm highlighting all of these books that we need to make sure to revisit and celebrate this year. Ezra's Duel with Danger is March 17th. That's a young reader book, I believe. Let me verify that. Yes, I was correct. It's the third installment in the Star Wars Rebels chapter books series. I have not read these. which I know is a tragedy. And I would love to remedy that. Because honestly, any Star Wars book I haven't read, I should read it, right? No, I'm not of the audience. I'm not the intended audience for this book. That does not matter. I'm reading The Wild Robot right now. You think I care? You think I care about whether or not I'm the target audience for a book? Very good book. If you have not seen the movie, I know this is a Star Wars podcast. I'm just saying. If you haven't seen the movie, the book is just as good. If you have seen the movie, the book is just as good. Highly recommend. Lords of the Sith came out on April 28th. I love this book. I wasn't sure about it when I first read it, but it has a special place in my heart because it is the first hardcover canon book that I bought for over $100. Because, and I don't do this very often for the record, but when I was starting to read more Star Wars books and collect more books, I made it a goal to own all of the canon books in hardcover. And whether you know this or not, some canon books are difficult to find in hardcover at this point. Heir to the Jedi is one. I paid a lot more than I should have for that one. Lords of the Sith is one of the most expensive books I've ever bought. And I take very good care of him because that matters to me. And he was very expensive, but worth it. 100% worth it. I love the cover. Really need to revisit this book. Maybe with a fan of Sith, of Vader. You know, I don't know if I know anyone who is. I'm just gonna move on from that. A little bit of a time jump here, but on June 9th, Battle for the End, which is the 4th installment of the Star Wars Rebels chapter book series. Again, I haven't read these books, and that feels like a tragedy. It feels like, especially because it's Rebels, and I've meant to read all of the Rebels tie-in material. I just have not yet. I should fix that because I can't say much more about it because I haven't read it. But it's turning 10 on June 9th. Oh, a book we've already talked about and rather recently. Time has no meaning to me, but it was last year. Dark Disciple. Dark Disciple. You all love this episode, by the way. It's one of my top listened to episodes ever because I talked to Jess, and basically our whole conversation was about how the book is actually about Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you don't believe me, listen to that episode. That's pretty much what the title of the episode is. Last year, March around maybe is when we released it. I don't remember exactly. I'll link it maybe in the notes to this episode if I remember to do that. That came out on July 7th. That is an anniversary I would love to celebrate by talking to someone very familiar with that book. As in maybe someone who wrote it. Remember last week how I said we were manifesting? Was that last week? We're manifesting all the great things we're going to do for the show in 2025. I promise after this episode, by the way, we're not going to be talking about 2025 anymore. We'll move on to other topics and other things. I'm having fun, though, and I hope you are, too. Also on July 7th, Servants of the Empire, Imperial Justice. I love this series so much. If you haven't read it, it's 4 books. They're middle grade, so they're pretty short. Do it. Oh my god, I forgot that Lost Stars came out. Lost Stars came out also in 2015 on September 4th. This was also one of the first books, I had to verify this, one of the first books to be released as part of the Journey to The Force Awakens. A lot of books actually in the Journey to The Force Awakens. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that everyone loves this book and is obsessed with it. We also talked about this book last year. Was it last year? Nope, it was the year before that. Devora and I talked about it on our annual Valentine's Day episode. So that is also, you can listen to that too if you want a full discussion on the book. All right, now we're getting into more of the Journey to books, and there's a trilogy of middle grade books that are part of the Journey to The Force Awakens that no one, I swear, has read. And you should, because they're great. There's Smuggler's Run, a Han Solo and Chewbacca adventure, The Weapon of a Jedi, a Luke Skywalker adventure, and Moving Target, a Princess Leia adventure. All of these also came out on September 4th. Wait, all of these came out on September 4th? Holy shit. Okay. Those came out on September 4th. You know what else came out on September 4th? Aftermath. We talked about that last year too. We should have, oh my God, we should have talked about all these books this year for their 10-year anniversaries and not last year. I wasn't keeping track of that. Come on. All great books, all lead ups to The Force Awakens, as you already know. Once again, I'll say, because it's all about plugging in this episode, I guess. If you have not listened to our Aftermath trilogy episode, we do talk about the whole trilogy. That's with Drew and Devore, and it's chaotic because neither of them really like that trilogy that much, but I made them reread it and come onto the show and talk about it, and it was great. I read this next one recently, actually. It came out on September 22nd. It's A New Hope, The Princess, The Scoundrel, and The Farm Boy. And this is like a okay, so that's what I thought. It's a canon junior novel of A New Hope, and it is very entertaining. And I've heard that this is the best in the trilogy of these that they did. Highly recommend. A New Hope is great, and so is revisiting it through a slightly different lens. So if you haven't read that, I listened to the audiobook through my library, I think. So one of those does exist. And it's very short. Highly recommend that. I'm going to say highly recommend to all of these, and I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is. All right, I misspoke. So I really needed to look farther down the list. All of the 3 canon junior novelizations for these came out on the same day, September 22nd. There's the New Hope one, which I talked about already, the Empire Strikes Back one, and the Return of the Jedi one. I have not read the other 2, but I'm assuming they're just as good. So I already talked about the trilogy, so check those out. I love the covers too. Maybe I'll post a photo of one of the covers. They're cute, and I like them. And we have another Servants of the Empire book. The Secret Academy. I love these books. October 6th. If you have not read Battlefront Twilight Company, which came out on November 3rd, 2015, I would do that. Both this and Inferno Squad are very good books, and it doesn't matter what order you read them in. One is like labeled 1 and one is labeled Battlefront 2, but they're not like connected in the sense that you have to read one before the other. And another one of my favorite middle grade Star Wars books, and the final on this list, which came out on December 18th, 2015, was Before the Awakening. This is a book that features perspectives from Poe, Rey, and Finn right before the start of the movie. And the Rey one particularly sticks in my mind because it's just very good. They're short, so there's not a lot I can say without spoiling it, but a lot of great authors, a lot of great books that came out that have become very foundational to Star Wars canon. I mean, when Aftermath came out, so many books since then have pulled books in other media. If you think about other characters and other events that are featured in it, so many books pull from the Aftermath trilogy because so little Star Wars canon lore, if you want to call it, existed. So, you had like Rebels and you had like some other books that had come out, but like in terms of like establishing, what had happened before The Force Awakens, after Return of the Jedi and before this new movie that was going to come out, Aftermath did so much of that work. And that's why the books in this Journey to series, I can't believe they all came out on the same day. That was wild. You know what? Sometimes in publishing you have to experiment. I'm not criticizing, but they stopped doing that. But anyway, think of like how foundational all of these books, really, especially Lost Stars and Aftermath, have become to what we know about Star Wars lore, especially like the joke is that why does everyone want to go back to Jakku? But that battle, very important. So that's it. There's 18 of these. That's a lot. And I'm sure that that number is going to go up, based on like how rapidly Star Wars publishing, will continue to publish books as the years go on, and still does. And we're not mad about that. Will that change with the end of the High Republic also happening this year? Unclear. Imagine the 10-year anniversary of Light of the Jedi. Will this podcast still exist? Anything could happen. Will the internet still exist? Will the planet still exist? I don't know. No one knows. It's fine. Ignore whatever that doom spiral was. It's going to be a great year for celebrating all these Star Wars books that came out. It's going to be a great year for, like we talked about before, new books that are coming out, but also for celebrating the books that came before, and especially in 2015, books that were so foundational. Thank you for listening, as always. Thank you for listening to me ramble on and on for the last 3 episodes. I promise we're going to have some guests, and you won't have to listen to me unscripted go wild every single week. Happy 2025, everyone. Happy reading. Now This Is Lit is part of the Faraway Fandom Network. It is produced by Devor Mondum and written, hosted, and edited by me. Jose Jimenez designed our podcast art. You can keep up with the show on Substack and Now This Is Lit, and find the show wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many ways you can support the show, and all of those ways are linked in the show description. The newest way is to become a member of our Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get access to an exclusive show and a sticker. And if we get 500 people to support the Patreon per month, I can hire an editor. That would be great for me, and maybe for you too. So if you'd like to support the show with just $1 a month, you can do it that way. Or you can just keep listening and sharing the episodes. That is also helpful, and I appreciate it. For more book reviews and Star Wars Book Celebration, follow Star Wars Book Reviews on Instagram and TikTok.